Welcome back. We're here with Juliette Peters talking about her incredible life experience and the power of the female entrepreneur, all the incredible things that they're doing in the world, and some of the reasons why that's taking place. Now, Juliette, before the break, we talked a little bit about a transition that's taking place over the next 15 years, you'd indicated, a wealth transfer. And I know
Yes.
I have some ideas as to why it's taking place, but I'd love to hear your perspective. I think the baby boom has a little bit to do with it. But maybe give me, from your vantage point, how you see that progressing and why it would be important for our listeners to understand.
Well, I think it's important for a couple of reasons. When you look at kind of the historical data, women have always controlled a certain amount of the buying power within households, right?
Hmm.
They actually, make a difference in brands. That's always kind of been the case with the baby boom, and the transfer of wealth from the hands of the baby boomers, and even in some respects the greatest generation, those that are left, right? Back. That is primarily, a large portion of that will go to women, right? So that buying power, which has been heavy, is now going to be primary, right? There'll be a lot more of that kind of out there. The messaging around that women are going to be a much larger part of the conversation. Women are also opening businesses at twice the rate of men,
Mm.
right? So in the last number of years, the number of women starting businesses has really ballooned. The trick on that is that only 1.9% of women business owners ever crack the seven-figure, profit, if you will, in their business, right? Or
Mm.
revenue, top line, not even just bottom line. So that's disturbing, right? Because if you have all of these women starting businesses, but they are stymied either in what we call the messy middle, which is somewhere between 4 and 500,000. That's a decent chunk. It's like 4%. But the vast majority never even cracked six figures in revenue, right?
Mm.
So, there are a lot of reasons for that. It's kind of a complicated picture. It's not one size fits all, but one of the things that I think is there's a lot of, work that has to be done on mindset around that, primarily and particularly related to money. Now, it is true that women don't have access to capital at the same rate that men do. Again, not hyperbole, fact.
Mm.
And then there are some sort of internal drivers where women don't reach for going out on a limb in terms of growth. They want to bootstrap because they are more risk adverse as a general population, not all women, but as a general population,
Yeah.
more risk
Everything comes
adverse.
back to a bell curve of some kind.
Absolutely. More risk adverse on finances than men, right? Um, so there are some things that we as women business owners have to work on. And one of the things for me that I see, Richard, all the time is that women work better in communities. So programs where women are in cohorts, where they're in masterminds, those are really important for women because one person rises, they all rise, right? And so for me, one of the things that I'm very passionate about is I've always been a self-help and a lifelong learner, right? I'm into personal development. I always have been. I think it's really important for women business owners to surround themselves with women who are succeeding at a higher level even than they are,
Mm.
right? You don't want to be the best in the room. You want to be the one who is going to be raised by the discussions and the decisions made by other women. So those are the things that I am I had seen work really well over the last number of years.
It's very interesting. So, as you're saying this, I see a lot of reflections to some degree, actually, in my own life. My mother was a strong, independent woman that I've always looked up to. She's been a great mentor and a guiding light for a lot of things for me. And a lot of that was because she was the youngest of a large family, and her father passed away when she was quite young. And so her mom actually was in a farming community. Grew up having to tackle all of these things, and so
Yeah.
she was forced into a position to lead, with some measure of authority. And so she
Mhm.
had a great role model to see that. And of course, farmers are quite, they have a lot of ingenuity in things. They make do with what's available to put things together. They invent a lot of things because they work with what's on hand. And so she developed a lot of those skill sets, and I got to see that to some degree in my life growing up. So I always had a strong, female leader presence in my life, even to this day, which is wonderful. So, I really recognize that, growing up in a family household with a service based business, we certainly understood how to work hard. We didn't know a lot about delegation, but we learned a lot of other things. But my mom was a big spearhead of making sure that that business got created and flourished to the degree that it did. And so I see that as well in my own life. And it's interesting, circling back to the transition and the baby boom and so on, from an insurance perspective, being that I operate in a life insurance industry, we help people, teach them how to become their own banker with the infinite banking concept. But understanding the mechanics of insurance, I mean, everything's based on math and actuarial tables. And quite
Right.
literally, what I share with my clients is, us fellas are going to go quicker than the ladies because we tend to do a lot of dumb things in life. And so mathematically, we don't live as long. Yeah, again, it's a bell
Yep.
curve, but the
Yep.
statistics are very clear, and they haven't changed in like 200 years.
Yeah.
Men simply don't outlive their partners. And so it's a natural consistency if we think about the transition of the baby boom, and we have widows left, and then of course they're going to survive for a number of years. Medical technology is advancing, so if they're
Yep.
already younger, and often another thing that happens in the baby boom is you often would have an older male, sometimes male spouse to
Right.
some degree, and maybe by a few years. So there's a couple of reasons. So that could add, potentially a decade, even maybe even more of additional span for that widow to continue. And then you're going to see a secondary transition to kids and grandkids. So there's a ripple effect taking place there that I think you bring awareness to, which is really, really important.
Yeah, and we have to, as women, we have to help each other, help ourselves, which is we have to strengthen our bonds and messages around money and around business ownership and around what we are capable of, how we price our services, and those are all things that I think women, particularly when they get in business, have some additional challenges that they have to face head on,
Mm.
or they will remain in that bottom group. I mean, imagine how phenomenal it would be, right, if all of these budding entrepreneurs really kind of hook in and make what really kind of build businesses that then feed others, and it is a ripple effect, right? And um I think that, what's tricky is whenever you talk about business ownership, whether or not you are producing an enterprise level business, meaning that's how you've grown your business because you want to be able to sell it, right? That's one path. And then, the lifestyle business path is also a choice. And you, as a woman, could make that choice, which is you could have a very nice and very lucrative business and never really intend to sell it, right? And you don't have to, it's also a choice not to grow it. There's a great book out there called The Company of One, right? Which I love that book because I think there are people who want to be a company of one and they use a lot of, outside contractor labor and they are able to do great things and build great businesses, but they don't intend to build a business they're then going to sell.
Mm.
But those are choice points. You shouldn't, I think we have to have more dialogue around that because you shouldn't just sink into a decision simply because you can't get the head trash out of the way to, make a firm decision about which avenue you're taking and why, right?
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, you talk a lot about the importance of mindset. I'm a huge fan and
Huge.
believer of mindset. We talk about that a lot on this show. As a Colby certified coach, that's something I work a lot with my clients on is on mindset. And of course, I'm always working on my own because I have coaches myself. And so I think there's an important element of coaching that's necessary here. And I think that'll lead us into some of the things we're going to talk about later in the show. But it's not easy to develop a mindset, and there has to become a moment of awareness first that says something needs to change and adjust in your life, and then you can start to seek what those things are. It doesn't always happen naturally. It usually happens because of some kind of a catalyst event, is what I find
Always.
for most people, both women and men.
Yep. Yeah, I think there is no gender difference on that, right? It's a catalyst that is always pushing you to look deeper at whatever it is that, you are holding yourself back on, right? So, yeah.
Now, one of the things that we, have kind of unpacked here, of course, is the importance of certainly the mindset, but you've also, circling back to your beginning of your story and working in, the newsroom environment, having to deal with that culture, dealing with the jokes and the jeers, but keeping up with everybody and that sort of thing. At some point in time, Juliet, there was a transition for you, and you ended up, moving from that role into another role. So, how has things progressed for you on this journey? And it seems to me like in our conversation, we're doing a lot of um, taking your own life lessons and trying to apply these things to the people that you most wish to serve, which is the female entrepreneur. So, where are some of these roadmap items for you that have created such transition in your own life?
I think that for me, I feel very drawn to building a bridge between the sort of where I'm at now in my career and the people that are of my ilk, which I would say, I am the back end of the boom.